Hey guys, tonight we step quietly into a world lit by flickering torches and echoing with rumours. Picture this. It's a damp evening in a nameless medieval village, the kind where each cottage sags under the weight of 100 secrets. The air smells of smoke and cabbage, and you can almost feel centuries of whispers pressing against your skin. There's a heaviness to the hush here, a carefulness to every greeting, as if every word must be weighed before it leaves your mouth. You wrap your cloak tighter and trudge along the muddy lane. Your boots sink in, cold water creeping between your toes. As you pass under the crooked eaves, the villagers glance your way, then look quickly back to their chores. Everyone's got eyes tonight, but no one's got a voice. Overhead, the bell tower looms, more judge than guardian, its shadow swallowing the cobblestones ahead. In this place, reputation isn't just precious, it's the only coin that matters. Every so often, you catch the word "busted" floating through the gloom, spat like a curse. It's a word so loaded that it can make a grown woman flinch, or a child shrink into a corner. Here, to be born on the wrong side of the marriage bed is to carry a stain you can't ever wash away, unless you're hiding a barrel of holy water and a generous supply of bleach. Spoiler: neither exists, though a few villagers swear by a mix of soap and superstition. You wander past a low stone house. There's a flicker of candlelight behind the shutters, and the sound of muffled weeping. Your heart does an uneasy little tap dance. Someone inside is praying for a miracle, or maybe just for a secret to stay hidden for one more night. And then it hits you. If you, by some twist of fate or a single stolen night, found yourself with child and no ring on your finger, your fate would be more tangled than the rushes on the floor. You'd face suspicion from the midwife, scorn from the grocer, a frozen stare from your own mother. Even the baker's dog would give you side-eye. Medieval life isn't built for solo acts, especially not if you're carrying a bundle that can't be explained by too much pie. You probably won't survive this one, you think. Not if the village finds out. The law is less forgiving than the weather, and the weather's been known to kill. Already you can feel the cold breath of judgment at your neck. Somewhere nearby, a rooster crows, midnight's favourite prankster, reminding you that the darkness doesn't last forever, but secrets, they can outlive generations. So before we drift any deeper, if this hushed little corner brings you even a flicker of calm, feel free to like the video and subscribe, but only if it feels right in your chest. Let me know your location and local time below, and maybe share if you've ever heard your own family's old secrets whispered after dark. Now, breathe slow, let the weight fall off your shoulders, and sink with me into tonight's slow unraveling of the past. Right here on Historian's Diary. The night stretches ahead. You keep walking, every sense awake. You notice how the village hushes whenever a single girl lingers too long by the well, or how mothers grip their daughters' hands a little tighter when the local squire rides by. The dangers here aren't just wolves or highwaymen, they're neighbours who remember too much, priests who listen too well, and the ever-watchful eyes behind those battered shutters. A sudden gust rattles a wooden sign, barely hanging by a nail, the kind you'd swear was waiting for a reason to crash down. You pause under its creak and realise you're not alone. There's a girl your age, hair half hidden under a rough woolen scarf, eyes wide as the moon. She's holding a bundle to her chest, so tightly you worry she'll suffocate it, or herself. You try to meet her gaze, but she slips away, melting into the night's chill. You wonder how many like her have slipped through the cracks, nameless and forgotten. But their stories are everywhere. If you look closely, etched into door lintels, whispered through keyholes, even tucked beneath the church pews where no one dares kneel. Tonight, the past clings to you like the cold, and as you take your first steps into this winding tale, you realise every footfall echoes with the secrets of those who came before. Some who survived, most who didn't, and all of whom never really left. You move deeper into the labyrinth of the village, where the paths are nothing but grooves worn by desperate feet. The stones remember everything, from wedding processions to midnight escapes. Tonight you're following the hush that always surrounds one cottage, the place where every birth begins, ends, or is quietly erased. This is where the midwife lives, or as the village children call her, the Witch of Whisper Lane. You pull your hood a little lower. The last thing you need is attention, especially her. Smoke drifts from her crooked chimney. It's an oddly sweet scent, nothing like the greasy fires of most kitchens. Here, you smell dried lavender, chamomile, something sharp and earthy that makes you think of secrets buried in gardens. The windows glow. You listen. Inside, the midwife is humming an old tune, her voice as rough as the hands that catch every child born within a day's ride. She's the only woman in the village who can look the priest in the eye and not flinch. Even so, she's always alone, by choice, or by necessity, you're not sure. You remember how villagers cross themselves when they pass her door, as if her presence alone could make a belly swell or a rumour take root. But if you're in trouble, real trouble, she's the one you seek. Unwed girls arrive at her door trembling, clutching their bellies, hoping for a miracle or a mercy. Sometimes she helps. Sometimes she only listens, her face unreadable. And sometimes, late at night, you hear a different kind of cry, one that never grows up to chase chickens or beg for bread. Tonight, the midwife is tending a girl not much older than you. The girl's hair is plastered to her forehead, her eyes red and wild. You hear a whispered prayer, half Latin, half hope, as the old woman moves with practiced ease. There's blood on the straw, and a silence so heavy it could flatten the roof. Then the smallest, frailest sound, a newborn's cry, quickly muffled by rough linen. The midwife moves quickly, swaddling the baby. She leans in, muttering something that sounds like both a blessing and a warning. The girl looks away, her face a mask of exhaustion and dread. Outside, the moon ducks behind a cloud, as if even it can't bear witness. You stand frozen, torn between awe and horror. The world has shifted for this girl, and not in her favour. In a place where every birth is a public event, trumpets for the mayor's wife, church bells for a baker's son, the arrival of this child is marked only by the sigh of a wind and the closing of a shutter. There'll be no celebration. Tomorrow, the girl will return home, eyes lowered, hands empty. The baby? That's another story. A chapter best left untold, unless you want trouble knocking on your own door. Sometimes, if the father is known and willing, usually after a midnight meeting and several threats from an angry uncle, a hasty marriage saves both girl and child. The priest will mutter something about God's mercy, and everyone will pretend not to count the months. But most aren't so lucky. For them, the midwife offers only choices: hide the child, find a distant cousin with a soft heart and a weaker mind, or, well, some options are best left unspoken, especially with little ears around. You're no fool. You've heard the stories how sometimes the midwife herself is forced to dig a shallow grave beneath her garden, her tears mixing with the rain as she whispers an apology to a world that offers no place for the innocent or the inconvenient. Sometimes she keeps a scrap of linen, a lock of hair, or a tiny wooden toy as a memory, tucked away behind jars of herbs and potions. A reminder, perhaps, of the life she couldn't save, or the secret she'll carry to her own grave. It's not all tragedy. There are moments of humour here too, if you know where to look. The midwife is a champion at swatting away nosy neighbours. Her broom swings faster than most swords, and her tongue is sharper than any knife. She has a fondness for practical jokes, dyeing the priest's hair green with nettle juice, swapping the mayor's shoes with ones full of goose down. It's her way of reminding the village that even those who deliver death can bring a little laughter too. You step inside her cottage, ducking beneath bundles of drying herbs. The walls are lined with jars, some filled with powders, some with liquids that glow in the candlelight. There's a cat asleep by the fire, fat and smug, as if it owns the whole operation. The midwife nods at you, her eyes twinkling with the knowledge of 1,000 secrets. She lets you help her clean up, handing you a rag that's seen better days. You scrub the floor, careful not to look at the stains that won't come out. There's comfort in the work, in the quiet companionship of two women bound by necessity, not choice. The girl is gone, slipped out the back before dawn, her face hidden beneath a shawl. Afterward, the midwife sits you down, pours a cup of something warm and sweet. She tells you about her own past, not the whole story, but enough to make you understand that nobody ends up here by accident. She once had a child too, born out of wedlock, buried in a nameless grave on a stormy night. She never says it outright, but you see it in the way she handles every swaddled bundle, careful, reverent, hopeful, and afraid. Every village has its ghosts, she tells you, her voice soft as velvet. Some just make more noise than others. She laughs then, a raspy cackle that makes the cat twitch. But don't worry, even the worst secrets get forgotten eventually. Usually right after the next scandal, there's truth in her words. The village has a memory like a sieve. Today's outrage is tomorrow's gossip, and next week's joke. Still, for girls like the one you saw tonight, the memory will never fade. Every sideways glance, every whispered word, every time someone points and snickers as she passes by, it all adds up, piling higher and heavier, until it crushes whatever hope was left. You wonder how many more will come to this door in the months ahead. Winter is coming, and with it, long nights and too much time for secrets to fester. The midwife seems tired, but she smiles as she hands you a small bag of herbs. For sleep, she says, winking, works better than confession, and leaves fewer bruises. As you step back into the night, you hear the midwife humming again, her song trailing after you like a blessing and a warning, all at once. You think about the girl, about all the girls, and about how easy it is to lose everything in a world that refuses to forgive what it refuses to understand. A dog barks in the distance, startling you. You hurry down the lane, heart thumping. The village is quiet, but it's the kind of quiet that feels loaded, ready to snap. You know you should go home, crawl under your covers, and pretend none of this ever happened, but sleep is far away tonight, chased off by the memory of the midwife's steady hands and the girl's haunted eyes. You pass the church on your way back, its doors closed and locked against the night. Inside, the priest is probably snoring, dreaming of sermons and salvation. You wonder if he ever thinks about the girls who sit at the back, eyes down, hands folded, praying for forgiveness for things that weren't really their fault. You wonder if he knows what happens in the shadows, if he even wants to know. The village is full of stories, most of them unfinished. Some end in laughter, others in tears. But the stories of unwed mothers, they're the ones everyone tries to forget, even though they're the hardest to erase. A sudden wind stirs the trees, making the shadows dance. You shiver and quicken your pace. At the edge of the village, you glance back. The midwife's window is dark now, but you know she's awake, sitting by the fire listening for the next knock on her door. As you finally slip into your own bed, you realize something. You're not the only one lying awake tonight, haunted by secrets and the weight of what-ifs. Somewhere, another girl is staring at the ceiling, counting the days until she can't hide anymore. Somewhere, another midwife is preparing her herbs, steeling herself for another night of hard choices and harder goodbyes. The world turns, the village sleeps, and the whispers never stop. But for now at least, you're safe. For now, you wake before dawn, the kind of blue-black hour when most souls are still lost in dreams or nightmares. The whole cottage seems to hold its breath, and you, shivering under a scratchy blanket, wonder what it's like to wake up in a place where every day isn't a battle with memory. You listen to the faint sounds beyond your thin window, the sigh of wind in the thatch, the distant cluck of a hen who hasn't quite figured out sunrise. Somewhere, someone is already moving. It's always the women up first, always the ones with the most to hide or lose. You listen to the faint sounds beyond your thin window, the sigh of wind in the thatch, the distant cluck of a hen who hasn't quite figured out sunrise. Somewhere, someone is already moving. It's always the women up first, always the ones with the most to hide or lose. Today, your steps lead you toward the edge of the village, to the high stone wall that rings a little cloister, a place where even the trees seem to bow in prayer. This is the convent, its gates closed to the world, its secrets tucked as tight as the nuns' veils. If the village is a patchwork of whispers, the convent is a tapestry of silence. Here, penance is a daily rhythm, not a story told once and set aside. The old tales say girls sent here are saved. You know better. Salvation comes dressed in sackcloth and ashes, with a side of hard bread and icy water. The villagers call it a mercy. The girls call it exile. Most of them arrive the same way, pale, shaking, clutching a tiny bundle or an empty belly, eyes wide with terror and the desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, life inside these walls will hurt less than life outside. You step through the arched gate. The air inside is cool and smells faintly of candle wax and soap. So much soap, always scrubbing, always cleansing. A novice greets you, her voice barely more than a breath. She doesn't ask your name. Names don't last long here. Once you cross this threshold, your old life gets scrubbed away with everything else. You're shown to a cell. A room, really. But it feels like a cell. Bare floor. One straw pallet. A cross nailed to the wall. And a window so high you'd need to stand on your tiptoes just to glimpse a sliver of sky. If you're lucky, you'll be allowed to keep your hair. If not, you'll watch as it's hacked away. A rough reminder that vanity won't follow you in. Day breaks, and so does the routine. Prayers before sunrise, chores in the kitchen or laundry. More prayers, silent meals eaten side by side. Not a word spoken unless the abbess gives leave. It's a quiet that settles in your bones. And some days, you swear you can hear your own heartbeat louder than the bells. The others keep their distance, but you recognize the haunted look in their eyes. A few are as young as you, some even younger, and all have stories written in the way their hands twist in their laps or their eyes never quite meet yours. You try to piece together their lives. One girl rubs her wrist as if scrubbing away a memory. Another stares at the wall, lips moving in silent argument with God. There's one, though, who doesn't hide her pain. She's older, her hair streaked with grey, her face marked by years of sorrow. You learn, through careful observation, that she's been here longest. She moves with a weary grace, eyes sharp as a hawk's. Sometimes, at dusk, you catch her humming a lullaby beneath her breath. Once, she lets you join her in the chapel, alone. The air is thick with incense, and you kneel together, both pretending not to see the tears on each other's cheeks. As the days blend together, you begin to understand the strange comfort of routine. Every task is a shield against thought. You scrub floors until your hands ache. You knead dough so hard the nuns joke you could beat the devil with your loaves. At night, sleep comes in fitful snatches, chased away by dreams of crying babies and doors that never open again. You notice, with a jolt, that no one talks about the children. The babies who arrive with their mothers, or by themselves, vanish as quietly as dawn mist. Sometimes a wet nurse is called from the village. Sometimes the priest visits, his face grave, his words clipped, and then the child is simply gone. Some say they're sent to foundling homes in the city, but you've heard the darker rumours, the ones that coil in your mind as you lie awake, staring at that tiny slice of moon. You learn the ways of the convent, how to keep your head down, how to swallow your grief in silence, how to carry your sorrow without letting it show. Every so often the abbess will summon a girl, never the same one twice in a row, and take her to her office. What happens inside is never spoken of, but the girls always come out changed, some broken, some empty, a rare few, stronger. Once, you ask the older woman why she stays. Her answer is a soft laugh, bitter and gentle all at once. Where else would I go? She asks. Out there, I'm a cautionary tale. In here, at least I have a name, even if no one uses it. You try to find humour where you can. Sometimes, you and the other novices slip a bit of honey into the bread dough, giggling like children, as you wait for the stern cook to notice the difference. Once you manage to switch the abbess's inkwell with plum juice, the look on her face is almost worth the hour of extra penance. In a place like this, laughter is a kind of resistance. The days stretch on, and you lose track of time. The world outside fades, but your memories do not. You think of home, your mother's rough hands, your father's silence, the look on your neighbour's face when your belly began to swell. You remember the walk here, every stone, every sharp glance, every whispered prayer that this might be a new beginning. But mostly, you think of your child, whether held in your arms for a moment or taken before you could even give them a name. That ache never leaves. It's a wound that refuses to heal, a secret you're forced to keep even as it gnaws away inside you. You learn to carry it though. In time, you find yourself comforting newer arrivals, murmuring words you wish someone had said to you. The convent may not offer redemption, but it offers a kind of kinship, a silent understanding among women who know what it means to lose everything and keep living. Sometimes you dream of escape, You imagine slipping out under cover of darkness, scaling the wall, running until the world softens and the past can't find you. But even in your dreams, you know you'd be running forever. There are places you can hide, but never a place to be truly free. Not for women like you, not in this world. Yet, in the long hush before dawn, as you kneel beside the cold stone altar, you find a strange peace. The prayers rise around you, ancient words that carry more comfort than meaning. You realize you are not alone, not truly. Across the centuries, across villages and convents and cities, there have always been women like you, survivors, silent, strong, and still hoping for a tomorrow that isn't shaped by yesterday's shame. Outside, the bells begin to ring, calling the village to another day. You cross yourself, stand, and slip back into the rhythm of the cloistered life. Maybe, just maybe, this is what survival looks like. Not freedom, not forgiveness, but endurance. A daily act of quiet rebellion in a world determined to keep you silent. You return to your cell, draw the scratchy blanket up around your shoulders, and close your eyes. Tomorrow will come, as it always does, and so will you. The dawn after your first week in the convent arrives so quietly you almost miss it. Light trickles through the tiny high window, illuminating the dust that drifts lazily above your straw pallet. It's another day, the same as the last. A rhythm of prayer, labor, and the low constant ache you now carry behind your ribs. But as you walk to the chapel for morning devotion, you pass the heavy oak doors at the rear of the building, the ones that open only at the most desperate hours. Sometimes you hear footsteps beyond them in the night. Sometimes you hear a muffled cry. Tonight, as you slip from the chapel, you hear nothing but the wind's thin whine. The story of the girl who left her baby on the church steps is whispered among the novices, never loud enough for the nuns to overhear. She arrived with eyes raw from crying, her cloak ragged, her hands clutching a bundle so tightly her knuckles bled. You see her in your mind as you go about your chores, scrubbing floors, carrying buckets, kneeling in prayer until your knees ache. You picture her standing in the pre-dawn gloom, heart hammering like a trapped bird, too frightened to knock, too desperate to turn away. She leaves the bundle on the steps. It's wrapped in her own shawl, and tucked inside is a scrap of bread and a blue button. Perhaps all she could give, a mother's talisman. The bells have not yet rung for matins, but a stray cat slinks by, mewling, nose twitching at the new scent. The girl vanishes into the woods beyond, her shape quickly swallowed by the brambles and fog. You wonder if she'll ever return. The village will talk, of course, but nobody will admit to seeing her. She'll be a ghost among the living, a rumor with no name. It isn't long before a nun finds the baby, barely stirring in the morning chill. She scoops the bundle up and carries it inside, silent as a prayer. There will be no records, no announcements, just a new mouth to feed, a new soul to tuck away in the quiet corners of the cloister. In the village, the rumors will swirl. Was it the baker's daughter, the miller's niece, some poor traveller blown in by misfortune? The priest, when asked, will only sigh and cross himself. In public, the villagers will cluck their tongues and swear they'd never be so cruel. In private, they'll check their daughters' beds, count the months, and hope the scandal never lands at their own doorstep. You feel the weight of her story as you polish the chapel floors. Every stone here holds 1,000 secrets, each one heavier than the last. The nuns move through the halls like shadows, their faces kind but distant. You wonder how many of them arrived with their own bundles of shame, their own stories never spoken aloud. There is a kind of solidarity in silence. Over bowls of thin soup, the older novices share glances that say everything their lips cannot. One girl, her eyes haunted and wary, squeezes your hand under the table. You recognize the shape of her grief, as familiar as your own. Here, compassion is a language of glances and small kindnesses, a smuggled crust of bread, a warm blanket on a cold night. Some afternoons, when the nuns aren't watching, you sneak out to the old garden behind the cloister. The weeds are winning the war with the vegetables, but there's comfort in the wildness. A place where you can breathe without listening for footsteps. You sit on a crumbling bench, letting the sun warm your face. Sometimes you think you see movement at the edge of the woods, a flicker of blue maybe, or the shadow of a girl running. The world is full of ghosts here, all of them with stories to tell. The convent keeps its secrets, but so does the village. At the market, the women gossip in low voices, trading news with the care of people who know how easily words become weapons. A merchant's wife boasts about her cousin's good fortune, but her smile is brittle. Everyone remembers last year's scandal, when a baby was found at the edge of the forest, wrapped in a blood-stained sheet. The midwife buried it quietly, and the story faded, replaced by new rumors, Children grow up with these stories. They learn early what happens to girls who make mistakes, how quickly love can turn to shame, how easily the world forgets the innocent. You remember one joke the blacksmith's apprentice whispered once, hands cupped around his mouth, "If you leave a turnip on the steps, will the nuns raise that too?" You managed a hollow laugh, but the joke stuck with you, sour and sharp. It's always easier to mock what you fear. You hear that the girl who abandoned her baby was seen in a nearby town, working at a tavern. Someone swears she changed her name, started over. Maybe it's true. Or maybe it's just a story the village tells itself, a way to believe in second chances. You know better. In a world this small, the past is a wolf that never stops hunting. But even in this hard world, small mercies appear. The nuns do not judge the foundlings. They feed them, clean them, let them sleep beside the fire on cold nights. Some babies are adopted by families who cannot have children, though most will never know the truth of their origins. Some grow up to serve in the very convent where they were left, carrying the silence forward, generation after generation. Sometimes, as you drift off to sleep, you dream of a different ending for the girl at the church steps. In your dream, she finds a safe place, a kind hand, a chance to raise her child without fear. In your dream, the village welcomes them both. When you wake, you hold that vision close, letting it soften the sharp edges of the world you know. Humor like sunlight sneaks in through the cracks. The oldest nun, Sister Benedicta, who's rumored to have lived 3 lifetimes, winks at you one afternoon as you struggle with a particularly stubborn patch of wax on the chapel floor. "Don't let it beat you, girl," she whispers, "or it'll demand a dowry next." You laugh, surprising yourself. Even here, where laughter is as rare as honey, it is a small rebellion, a reminder that you are still alive. The routine continues. Each night, as the bells toll for compline, you light a candle for the lost girls and the foundlings, for the ones who made it and the ones who didn't. The flames flicker, casting long shadows on the chapel walls. You watch them and wonder if the girl in the woods ever thinks of her child, if she listens for rumors of convent bells ringing out for new arrivals. You whisper a wish into the darkness, barely daring to believe it could come true. May she find peace. May you all find peace. One day, when you blow out the candle and slip beneath your blanket, you feel the world holding its breath. For a moment, you almost believe you are safe. The first thing you notice about the town square is how loud it is, even when everyone pretends to be quiet. The stones are worn slick with centuries of footsteps, each one a small surrender to custom, to law, to the way things have always been done. You stand at the edge, just another figure in the crowd, half hidden beneath your hood, but you see everything. And tonight you're paying special attention to the scroll unfurled in the mayor's fist. It's market day, so the square bristles with gossip and turnips. On good days, you might overhear the price of eggs or who's been cheating whom at cards. But on days like this, when the town clerk stands beside the mayor, ink-stained fingers fluttering nervously, you know the news is bad. There's a hush as the scroll is read, each word heavier than the last. Laws about wheat and water, taxes and tithes, and then the ones that set your teeth on edge. There it is, in cold black ink. No unmarried woman, upon pain of public censure, shall bear a child. The punishment is spelled out in lines that loop and twist, written by a scribe who probably never saw a birthing bed. There's talk of stocks, of fines, of exile, and if you're truly unlucky, the long walk to the pillory at the edge of the square. You can't help but snort quietly. If you wrote down every way the law finds to punish women, the scroll would reach halfway to the next village. One day, someone's going to trip over it, and the town will blame the victim again. The crowd shifts, uncomfortable, You see mothers squeeze their daughters' hands, young men exchange sidelong glances. The law doesn't mention fathers. It never does. For every child born without a wedding ring, there's a girl made to pay. While the men fade into the background like smudged charcoal on an old tapestry, your memory drifts to a story you heard once. Sitting under the baker's table, knees pressed to your chest, a woman had been found with child, no husband in sight. The village elders gathered, muttering and pacing. They argued for hours about whether to fine her family or drive her out. No one asked who the father was, though everyone had a theory. When she cried for mercy, the mayor just pointed to the scroll. "It's the law," he said, as if that made it less cruel. The scroll is read, then rolled and tucked away until the next scandal. But its shadow lingers. You see it in the way girls lower their heads, the way conversations die when certain names are mentioned. You feel it in your bones, a threat that shapes your every move. Later, you find yourself wandering the market, hands empty, heart heavier than you care to admit. You pause at a stall selling ribbons, running your fingers over the silks. The merchant, a woman with laugh lines and quick hands, leans in. "Better to buy a ribbon than a reputation, eh?" she says, winking. You manage a smile. It's an old joke, but the truth behind it is sharp as ever. You pass the stocks, already scrubbed clean for the next unfortunate soul. The wood is worn smooth, stained by tears and worse. You imagine what it would feel like to be locked in, the whole village parading past, their eyes hungry for a story to tell. You picture the law scroll again, its endless rules curling like smoke into every corner of your life. You find solace in the small kindnesses people offer despite the rules. A loaf of bread left at your door, a shawl patched by nimble fingers, the baker slipping you an extra roll for your trouble, she says, her eyes soft. These gestures are tiny rebellions, cracks in the hard shell of the law. Yet, the fear never leaves. You see it in the new mother who cradles her baby too tightly, eyes darting to every window, in the girl who keeps her head down, praying no one notices the swelling beneath her dress, in the mother who quietly asks the midwife about remedies for a late period, voice barely above a whisper. You hear, too, of villages where the law is harsher still, stories of girls branded with hot irons, forced to carry their shame not just in memory but on their flesh, tales of exiles who vanish into the woods, never to return. Sometimes you wonder if it's better to be forgotten entirely. Even laughter is shaped by law. At a feast, the jester cracks a joke about a bastard's blessing, and everyone laughs too loud, too quickly, eager to prove they're on the right side of the scroll. You wonder how many at the table harbor secrets, how many hearts ache beneath the laughter. As dusk falls, the crowd disperses. You linger, watching as the mayor's clerk carefully locks away the scroll in a wooden chest. For all its bluster, the law is just ink and parchment, fragile, easy to burn, yet its power lingers, woven into the fabric of daily life, impossible to wash out. You find yourself near the old well, where children play in daylight, and grown women whisper after dark. It's here you hear the stories that never make it to the scroll. The girl who fled to a distant town and sent back news of a happier life. The woman who raised her child in secret, with the help of neighbors. The boy who grew up never knowing his father but loved all the same. These are the stories that matter, the ones that keep hope alive. As night settles in, you walk home slowly, letting the day's events unravel in your mind. You pass the baker's shop, the church, the empty stocks. You pause for a moment, pressing your palm to the cool wood, and whisper a wish for all the girls who have stood there, who will stand there still. Tomorrow, the scroll will remain locked away, but its words will echo in every shadow, every silence, every heartbeat. For now, you slip inside your cottage, bolt the door, and pray that your secrets will stay safe one more night. Before you sleep, you allow yourself one laugh, a small private joke. If laws were truly written to protect people, maybe they'd be shorter. Maybe they'd even mention love. You never quite get used to the weight of the crowd. Every week or so, it gathers with the slow inevitability of rain clouds, settling thick in the square, drawn by the invisible scent of scandal. Tonight you press into the back row, heart pounding in your chest, trying not to shiver under your plain brown cloak. You can already sense what's coming. The judgment bench has been dragged into the square, flanked by 2 wooden stools, one for the accused, one for the pious magistrate, who seems to relish these moments a little too much. You can already sense what's coming. The judgment bench has been dragged into the square, flanked by 2 wooden stools, one for the accused, one for the pious magistrate, who seems to relish these moments a little too much. A bell tolls. The crowd ripples, parents whispering sternly to wide-eyed children. This is what happens when a girl has no shame. An unwed mother has been summoned, her crime written in the swelling curve beneath her tunic, her shame painted across her face for all to see. The girl walks slow, hands pressed tight to her belly, eyes fixed on the stones as if hoping they'll swallow her up. You can't help but notice how young she is. Maybe 16, maybe less. You wonder if this is her first time in the square, or just her first time as the accused. She sits on the stool, back rigid. The magistrate, a man who spent more time sniffing for sin than tending his own family, unrolls a parchment and begins to read aloud. His voice drones, piling accusation atop accusation, fornication, deception, the endangerment of Christian souls. For a moment, you half expect him to accuse her of causing the last bad harvest. 2. Why not? When you're already at the mercy of a world tilted against you, everything's fair game. A series of questions follows, each one more loaded than the last. Who is the father? The girl's lips tremble. She glances at the crowd, scanning the sea of faces for a hint of mercy. You look too, and what you see makes your stomach twist. Some faces are hard, others curious, a few openly delighted. The baker's wife covers her mouth with her hand, but her eyes are hungry for details. The blacksmith's apprentice whispers to his friend, both trying to hide their smirks. The girl answers, voice barely more than a whisper. Maybe she knows the truth will bring no relief, or maybe she's protecting someone she loves, or someone she fears. Either way, the magistrate is unmoved. He repeats the question, louder, threatening fines and the stocks. There's a desperation in the air, a sense that everyone wants this over with so they can hurry home and tell the story over supper. A local priest stands beside the magistrate, his face grave and rehearsed. He talks of repentance, of God's mercy for those who confess, of the dangers of sin left to fester. Admit your guilt, child, and seek forgiveness. The words sound hollow, especially when spoken before a crowd that has already decided her fate. Suddenly, a cry rises from somewhere in the back, a woman's voice sharp with pain. What of the fathers? For a moment, the crowd shifts. Uncomfortable, the magistrate bristles. We are not here to judge the men, he snaps, only to preserve the virtue of our community. The words hang in the air, sticky and absurd, and you suppress a bitter laugh. The girl on the stool bows her head. The moment passes, swallowed by the noise. The judgment is swift. She will spend 3 days in the stocks, pay a fine her family can't afford, and wear the shame dress for a season. The crowd disperses, muttering. The blacksmith's apprentice makes a crude joke. Maybe the stocks will knock the sin out of her, and his friend howls with laughter. You roll your eyes, tempted to drop a turnip on their heads. If laughter really is the best medicine, maybe it could also be the best revenge. You linger in the square as the girl is led away, stumbling, the magistrate's verdict echoing after her. A few people toss stones, but most just avert their eyes. Some even look relieved. In this place, justice is as much performance as principle. Everyone plays their part, hoping never to be called on stage themselves. Later, as dusk settles and the crowd thins, you find the magistrate sitting by himself, picking mud from his boots. You wonder if he ever feels the weight of what he does, or if he sleeps easy knowing another girl's life is in ruins. You want to ask, but you know better. People in power rarely welcome questions, especially from those with no power at all. As you walk home, you think of the girl and all the others before her. You picture their faces, their trembling hands, the way shame and fear have become a second skin. You remember stories your grandmother told, how in her day they used to shave a girl's head as punishment, parading her through the streets for everyone to see. A head grows hair again, she'd say with a crooked smile, but a soul sometimes that never grows back. You pass a group of children playing by the well, their laughter sharp in the twilight. One child calls another a bastard, not even understanding the words poison. The mother scolds him, but the damage is done. Words have a way of sticking, of sinking deep and blooming into wounds that never quite heal. The next morning, you rise early, stomach knotted with worry. The girl's punishment begins at sunrise. You slip into the square just as the stocks are being unlocked. She stands shivering, arms bare, face set in a mask of defiance and shame. You see her mother nearby, eyes red, hands clutched tight to a rosary. The crowd is smaller this time, but the stares are sharper. You linger at the edge, unable to look away. A few brave souls offer comfort, a cup of water, a murmured word of kindness. But most just watch. The punishment is as much for them as it is for her, a lesson carved in flesh and memory. You wonder how many girls have stood here before, and how many will follow. The answer chills you. In a world where rules are made by those who never suffer their consequences, justice becomes just another way to keep everyone in their place. Still, life moves on. By evening, the square is bustling again. The fishmonger shouts his wares, the baker hands out loaves, and the latest scandal becomes just another story for the next market day. You slip away, heart heavy, head bowed, and vow, quietly, fiercely, that if your time ever comes, you'll meet it with your chin held high. But in the hush of night, as you lie in bed, you realize that survival isn't about pride or defiance. It's about endurance, about finding small pockets of kindness in a world that often seems determined to crush them. It's about laughing at the magistrate's muddy boots, about giving a cup of water when you can, about not turning away from the girl in the stocks. And maybe, just maybe, it's about holding on to the hope that one day the judgment bench will be empty, the scrolls will be rewritten, and the word bastard will lose its sting. But for now, you sleep, restless but unbroken. You awake to the sharp sound of metal clinking, your father counting coins at the kitchen table, lips pressed into a thin, familiar line. Every morning seems to begin this way now, the house hushed beneath the weight of unspoken worry. You watch your mother bustle about, pretending not to notice the stack of unpaid bills, or the way the neighbors' voices grow quiet when you pass by. Even before your feet touch the cold floorboards, you feel it, the strain, the unyielding web of expectations spun around your family's name. You watch your mother bustle about, pretending not to notice the stack of unpaid bills, or the way the neighbors' voices grow quiet when you pass by. Even before your feet touch the cold floorboards, you feel it, the strain, the unyielding web of expectations spun around your family's name. The town is abuzz with the fallout from last week's trial. Gossip floats from house to house, as common as chimney smoke. Veils of shame, chains of dowry. You mutter under your breath, remembering the phrase the midwife once used with a wink. She always had a way of making the truth bearable, as if sarcasm could soften the edge of fate. You step out into the narrow lane, senses prickling. The neighbor hurries her daughters inside, casting you a glance sharp enough to slice bread. The baker's wife, carrying a basket of loaves, offers a stiff nod. You force a smile, head high, but inside your thoughts are spinning, each step weighted with the knowledge that one wrong move could cost your family everything. In this world, a daughter's virtue is a family's currency, and a single misstep can bankrupt a name for generations. At the center of all this stands the dowry, a number scribbled on parchment, the sum of your worth in linen, land, and the vague promise of fertility. When you were a child, the idea seemed laughable. Is love bought and sold like a bushel of turnips? You once asked your mother. She only sighed, tucking a stray hair behind your ear, and said, "Some things are heavier than gold." You didn't understand then, but you do now. Word has spread that the family of last week's condemned girl is in ruin. Her father mortgaged his fields to pay the fine, her brothers have lost their apprenticeships, and her younger sister, once betrothed to the tanner's son, now walks home alone. Even the dog seems to carry himself with less swagger. You pass their cottage, the shutters closed, and hear the muffled sound of weeping. Shame is a contagion here, swift and deadly. Inside your own home, the pressure is subtler, but no less suffocating. Your father paces, muttering calculations. If we sell the good cow, There's enough for a modest dowry, he says. But if you disgrace us, there's nothing, only the poorhouse or the road. He won't meet your eyes. Your mother sits silent, hands folded in her lap, the lines on her face deeper than you remember. Later, you sit with her by the fire, mending a tear in your dress. She speaks quietly, careful not to wake the sleeping dog. In my day, she says, a girl's virtue was her only armor. If you lost it, you lost everything. You nod, thread biting into your finger. She pulls you close, her voice trembling. Promise me you'll be careful. Promise me you'll survive. You want to promise, but your words catch in your throat. Survival in this world is never guaranteed. Dowries rule every conversation. At market, women haggle over bolts of cloth, their voices low, measuring value not only in coin, but in reputation. The merchant's daughter fetches a fine price, one whispers. But she's no beauty, and her uncle's got a drinking problem. You try not to listen, but the words stick. Here, every girl is an investment, and every rumour can tip the scales. You recall with bitter humour the story of old Master Broderick, who famously demanded a second cow after discovering his new wife had smiled too sweetly at the priest. The village laughed for days until the bride's family sold half their land to pay up. The only thing more enduring than scandal is the price it exacts. Your friends are caught in the same trap. You meet Anna by the river, skirts hitched above muddy boots, faces flushed with secrets. She confesses that her father is negotiating with the butcher's family, hoping to secure a better match by offering a dowry heavy with silver spoons and promises. He said, if I cause trouble, she whispers, he'll send me to the convent. Or worse. You squeeze her hand, the silent pact of girls everywhere. Survive together, or not at all. The pressure grows with every passing season. As the harvest comes in, families gather to count their fortunes. Suitors arrive, eyes lingering a bit too long, smiles too practiced. Your mother pinches your cheeks, straightens your gown, and whispers, remember, every smile, every word, every step counts. You feel like a lamb led to market, and the old joke about being worth your weight in bread doesn't seem funny anymore. On the rare nights when laughter finds you, it's in the company of other girls, hidden behind barns or beneath apple trees. You trade stories of disastrous courtships, the boy who spilled cider on his best tunic, the lad whose mother demanded a dowry in the form of goats. Anna jokes that she'll marry a travelling musician just to escape the dowry market. You laugh until your sides ache, but underneath the fear remains. Sometimes you imagine what life might be like if dowries vanished overnight. You picture girls choosing their own futures, mothers sleeping soundly, fathers counting blessings instead of coins. But even in dreams, the chain never quite breaks. The world is too old, the rules too tightly woven. At church, the priest preaches about purity, his eyes scanning the congregation for sinners. You wonder if he sees the exhaustion in the mothers' faces, the dread in the daughters' eyes. He tells a story about a saint who resisted temptation, but you notice he never mentions the price paid by the ones who couldn't. As the hymn rises, you close your eyes, adding your own silent plea. Let me live. Let us all live. Autumn turns the leaves gold, and the day arrives when your father calls you into the kitchen, hands trembling. A match has been found. A merchant's son, respectable, well off, with a dowry to match. This is your chance, he says, voice brittle. Your mother hugs you so tightly you can barely breathe. You will be safe, she whispers, and you almost believe her. You meet your intended at market, heart pounding. He is polite, if a bit dull, his conversation full of prices and weather. You nod in all the right places, smile when expected, and wonder if you'll ever feel joy again. That night, you stare at the ceiling, listening to your parents' murmured prayers, and wish for something more. The wedding comes quickly. There is bread, wine, a scattering of flowers. Your family's relief is a palpable thing, lifting the air. Yet as you kneel at the altar, you feel the weight of the dowry like a chain around your neck. You are grateful, you are safe, you are sold. In the end, you tell yourself, survival is enough. But as you watch your mother weep with quiet relief and your father clutch his purse strings tight, you wonder what the price will be for the girls who come after you. In the flicker of the candles, you see Anna's face, and the faces of all the girls still waiting, still hoping, still afraid. You close your eyes, and for a moment, dream of freedom, a world where a girl's worth is measured not in coins or linen, but in laughter and love. And in the darkness, you vow to keep that dream alive, even if it's only a whisper. It's always the quiet places that hold the loudest secrets. There's a corner of the graveyard, just past the last leaning row of crosses, where the grass grows thick and wild. The villagers avoid it. The priests hurry their prayers when they walk by. You find yourself drawn there, even as your stomach knots with dread, because you know, like everyone else, that not every soul gets a stone. This morning, you slip out before sunrise, fog swirling at your ankles, breath pale in the cold. You move quickly, eyes darting over your shoulder, carrying a small bundle wrapped in linen. Not your bundle, never yours. You promise yourself, but one left at the convent door during the night. It's lighter than it should be. You cradle it as you walk, trying not to think of what it means for a life to end before it's begun. The old midwife meets you at the edge of the churchyard. She's waiting, shovel in hand, face set in grim determination. No words are spoken, there's no need. You've helped her before, in quieter ways. A cup of broth for a grieving girl, the silent nod in the market, the hand squeezed under the table. Today your hands tremble as you pass her the bundle. She kneels in the tall grass, fingers deft and gentle. The grave is shallow, must be, for speed's sake, and for secrecy. The earth is cold, clinging to your boots and the hem of your skirt. You try not to cry, but the lump in your throat is too much. You wipe your eyes, blaming the wind, though both of you know better. The old woman murmurs a blessing, her voice low and cracked. It's not the priest's Latin, but something older, a prayer for lost things and unmarked graves. You scatter a handful of wildflowers into the pit, because it feels wrong not to. You remember your mother telling you once that even weeds deserve sunlight. You hope that's true. You think of the girl who swore she hadn't done it, the one they found shivering by the river, dress torn and eyes wild with terror. She said she'd never even held the child, that she'd woken to find blood and silence. The village, of course, believed what it wanted. They always do. She did it, the baker's wife insisted, face pinched with certainty. You can see it in her eyes, as if guilt leaves marks as plain as mud. You recall the stories of women forced to bear their shame alone, of girls who fled into the woods, never to return, of mothers who left their children at church doors, praying for mercy but finding only blame. In the village's memory, these women are never victims, only warnings. A crow calls from a nearby tree, harsh and abrupt, as the midwife smooths earth over the linen. She presses a stone atop the mound, not a marker, just a promise that the ground won't be disturbed. You step back, arms wrapped tight around yourself. The old woman stands, brushing dirt from her knees. For a moment you see her as she is, tired, lined with grief, and still standing. She offers you a small, sad smile. "Thank you," you whisper, though it feels hollow. "Some things need doing," she replies. "Better us than them." You walk back toward the village, the morning sun bleeding through the mist. The world feels unchanged, but you know better. Every secret, every loss, settles somewhere. Some burrow deep, like seeds waiting for spring. Others linger just beneath the surface, ready to bloom in the wrong season. As the day wears on, you notice how the village carries on, pretending nothing has happened. Children chase chickens, men argue over prices, women gather at the well, trading recipes and rumors. Yet every so often, a conversation falters when someone passes by. The girl with the haunted eyes, the midwife with earth beneath her nails. At supper, your father thanks God for the harvest, your mother passes bread, your siblings bicker over who gets the last turnip. You sit quietly, the grave heavy in your mind, the secret even heavier in your heart. It's a burden you share with every woman at the table, whether they'll admit it or not. Sometimes you find yourself standing at the window late at night, staring out at the patch of wild grass by the graveyard. You wonder how many graves are out there, how many stories lost. You wonder if the world will ever remember these children, or if memory is just another thing women are asked to bear alone. There's humor here too, dark and brittle as old bones. The midwife once joked, If weeds grew from secrets, we'd never go hungry. You laughed, because it was true. Even in sorrow, laughter finds a way. It's a lifeline, a way to keep breathing when the world presses down too hard. You hear a rumor that the priest has seen ghosts near the wild grass, small shapes flitting between the crosses. Some say it's the souls of unbaptized children, denied both heaven and a headstone. Others say it's just foxes or owls. You like to think it's a sign that nothing is truly forgotten, that every loss leaves a mark, even if it's only visible to those who know where to look. The seasons turn. Snow buries the graveyard, then melts, then comes again. The wildflowers bloom, wilt, and bloom again. The village forgets the faces, but not the lesson. You carry the memory with you, tucked beneath your ribs, another secret in a life built on them. One afternoon, years later, you find yourself passing the same patch of wild grass. A new mother sits nearby, rocking her child, eyes closed against the sun. You pause, heart full of things you'll never say. The world spins on, and you wonder if anything ever really changes. As you walk away, you whisper a prayer for the lost, for the forgotten, for yourself. You don't know if anyone hears, but it comforts you all the same. And for a moment, in the hush of the graveyard, you feel a weight lift. You breathe, and it almost feels like hope. You slip through the heavy wooden door of the parish church just as the sun dips below the horizon, painting the stained glass windows in bruised purples and fiery golds. Inside, candles flicker along the aisle, each flame a silent promise and a tremor of light in the gathering darkness. The air is thick with incense, heavy enough to taste sweet on your tongue. There's a hush inside, broken only by the distant drip of water from a leaky font and the faint rustle of robes. You pause at the lattice screen, its slats narrow enough to let the breath of the priest through, but too tight to let you see his face clearly. This is the place where sins are weighed, secrets are buried, and judgments are passed in whispers. It's also your refuge, calling for absolution. Neither guarantees mercy nor forgives the world outside, but it gives you a moment's reprieve, a heartbeat of quiet when your own bones feel too loud. You step in, lowering the wooden grille behind you with a soft click. The interior is small. Just a bench, a kneeler, and a single candle balanced in a brass holder. Its flame dances across the walls, casting your shadow in trembling relief. You kneel, hands folded, and wait. "Bless me, Father," you begin, voice low, "for I have sinned." The words taste strange, as if they're borrowed from someone else's story. You hesitate, willing yourself to speak the truth. The silence stretches, then you exhale. "Father, Your voice wavers. You want to say you're tired of running from shadows, tired of the world's cruel verdicts. You want to say that every whispered judgment, every law scroll, every branding iron has carved your spirit into something unrecognizable, but the lattice is thin, and even your thoughts feel exposed. There's a soft sound on the other side, the priest adjusting his cloak, clearing his throat. "Speak, my child," he says, voice gruff with age. Confession is the first step toward mercy. You swallow. "I carried a child I did not wed," you whisper, each word a stone dropped in still water. "I left her, I left him, I do not even know." The candle flares, and for a moment you imagine it igniting the air itself. You picture the babe's pale fingers, the hush of linen, the cold earth waiting in the graveyard. You imagine the bundle pressed to your chest and the weight of that life, a heart beating just long enough to leave an ache. No water can wash away. Silence. Then the priest's voice, softer. "This burden you bear is heavy. Why do you carry it alone?" Your lips tremble. "Because there is no one else who will speak her name." You bite back a sob. "Because the laws of the land demand I keep silence. Because every time I open my mouth, 100 more judgments follow." The lattice shifts as the priest leans forward. You feel his breath, musty like old robes. "Mercy is not found in the law," he murmurs. "It is found here, in the heart that seeks forgiveness." You want to believe him. You want to imagine that this small wooden box is a safe place, that your confession can vanish like incense in the breeze. But you've seen the priest's eyes at market, watched him whisper to the magistrate, seen him preside over the stocks without a flicker of hesitation. You know mercy is a rare coin in this village, one most cannot afford. Tell me what you wish, he says, voice patient, and I will offer what consolation I can. You bow your head. I wish that the world would remember these children, that they would have names, that their stories wouldn't end in silence. I wish the girls who come after me could speak without fear. There's a long pause. You can almost hear the priest's own heart beating inside his chest. Finally, he clears his throat. These desires are holy, he says. The innocents' feast approaches soon. Perhaps you might join the vigil. Pray for the unnamed. Light candles for those lost to shame. You meet his voice. I will, you answer, surprising yourself with the conviction in your tone. He nods once, a small concession of respect. Then, go in peace. Speak what you can in this world and the next. He pauses, then adds, but be careful. Not all ears are kind. Even you rise, knees stiff, and the grill clicks behind you. The candles flaring along the aisle seem suddenly brighter, as if the church itself is watching. Outside, the sky is ink black, the moon a pale witness. You step into the cool night air, heart thudding, and realize you're not the only penitent wandering these lanes. Around you, others slip along in hush and shadow, their own confessions held tight in the hollow of their chests. Down the block, you glimpse Sister Eleanor, head bowed beneath her veil, tears glistening on her cheeks. You see a merchant's wife clutching a rosary, lips moving beneath the veil of prayer. You spot a young man, maybe 17, shoulders hunching as though the weight of another's sin lays heavy on him. In this village, confession doesn't end at the lattice. It follows you, like footprints in mud, until you can no longer tell whose sins are whose. You breathe in the night, letting the chill steady your nerves. The church door closes behind you with a soft thud, and the street lamps flicker, a promise that even in darkness there's a heart that beats for mercy. You walk toward the river, where water murmurs over stones old as time, offering a lullaby for restless souls. As you go, you remember the girl who confessed beside you last month. A girl no older than 15, brought by her mother for fear of damnation. She knelt, voice cracking, and admitted nothing more than a longing for love. When she rose, the priest pressed a small wooden cross into her hand and whispered a blessing. She held it tight, eyes shining, as though she had been given a piece of light to carry through the long nights. You remember the relief in her eyes, brief flickering, like a candle in a storm. It made you believe for a moment that confession could be more than a ritual, that it could be a spark of humanity in a world determined to forget it. At the riverbank, you find a smooth stone to sit on. You draw the bundle of herbs the midwife gave you from your cloak and tuck them into your pocket. You trace the cross carved on one of them, an old charm, not unlike the one given at the confessional. You close your eyes and let the river's song fill your ears. Moonlight shimmers on the water's surface, and for a moment you see faces in the ripples, children with bright eyes and gossamer hair, mothers with sorrow etched in their cheekbones, girls with hands pressed to swollen bellies. They drift across the current free from judgment, free from scrolls and stocks, free from the weight of the world's unkind laws. You breathe deep, filling your lungs with the cool night, and whisper a prayer so soft you can barely hear it. May you be remembered, may you be loved. The words vanish into the ripples, carried downstream to wherever the nameless souls gather. Behind you, the church bells toll midnight, 10, 11, 12. Each note a heartbeat echoing through the still air. You rise, dust off your skirts, and turn back toward the village. The path home is long, the night full of shadows, but your shoulders feel lighter. In the confessional, in the vigil to come, you have sung a small hymn for the lost, and in doing so, you have reclaimed a piece of your own soul. The world remains unkind. The laws remain harsh, but in the hush of confession and the flicker of candlelight, you've breathed life into memory, carving space for mercy in a place that so desperately needs it. When you reach your cottage, you pause at the door, pressing your hand to the rough wood. You place your other hand over your heart, feeling the steady beat within. You've carried darkness here tonight, but you also carry light, the promise of remembrance, the whisper of mercy. With a last glance at the moonlit sky, you step inside, close the door, and tiptoe to your bed. Tomorrow, the square will fill again. Voices will rise in gossip and judgment, and the world will demand its sacrifices. But tonight you've given a gift no law can take, the chance for a whisper to be heard, for a soul to be named. You slip beneath the blanket, holding that gift close, and drift into dreams where candlelight never fades. The first time you help with the laundry, you expect the usual: soaking, scrubbing, the endless beating cloth against rock. Instead, Sister Agnes hands you a bundle of rough grey fabric, a dress so plain, so heavy with mud and the ghosts of 100 tears that you nearly drop it in surprise. You'll get used to it, she says, her eyes unreadable. We all do. This is the punishment dress, infamous in every village for miles. It's what unwed mothers wear after the trial, after the stocks, after the fines that ruin families and the whispers that never end. You've seen girls trudging through town in it, head down, hands knotted, skirts caked with dust. It's not a garment so much as a sentence, a way for the world to keep shame alive long after the stocks are empty. In some parishes they call it the mark of Eve, in others just the grey. Either way, it never comes out clean, no matter how hard you scrub. You plunge the dress into icy water, the chill biting your wrists. Soap froths in your palms, but the stains cling stubbornly. Grass, old blood, the smear of something darker you don't want to name. You wonder who wore it last. Anna, who vanished after her 3rd week in penance. Margaret, whose laughter still echoes in the garden late at night. Or was it the girl from last week, eyes hollowed by hunger and humiliation, who hasn't spoken since? The dress is a kind of ghost itself, passing from body to body, carrying each story forward. As you scrub, Sister Agnes tells you how the tradition began. They say it's for repentance, to remind a girl of her sin. But really, it's so everyone else remembers. Shame loves company, she snorts, shaking water from her hands. Truth is, the dress never fits. Not really. Too big, too small, always pinching or sagging. It's as if the world can't decide how much punishment is enough. You can't help but laugh, soft, bitter, but genuine. Maybe they should let us decorate it, embroider the names of every judge and gossip, add a pocket for all the stones they'd like to throw. Agnes smirks. Now, wouldn't that be a sight? Imagine the mayor's face. You rinse the dress, wringing it until your arms ache. The water runs dark, carrying away a fraction of the pain, but never all of it. You hang it in the courtyard, watching it drip, an unspoken warning to every girl who passes. The sight chills you, even more than the wind that whistles through the convent walls. That afternoon, you pass through town on an errand, your hands still raw from scrubbing. You spot a girl in the grey trudging through the square. Her hair is unbraided, her face flushed with shame. 2 boys jeer from behind a cart, tossing pebbles in her path. You want to shout, to chase them away, but Sister Agnes's words echo in your mind. Sometimes silence is safer than courage. Instead, you catch the girl's eye and offer a small nod. She holds your gaze for a heartbeat, a flicker of gratitude in her eyes before she looks away. It's not much, but in a world that thrives on cruelty, even a nod can be a lifeline. The punishment dress is a passport to isolation. No one will sit beside you at church. Merchants serve you last, if at all. Children are warned to keep their distance. Even the stray dogs seem to sense the taint, barking as you pass. You wonder how the dress feels at night, whether it scratches, whether the shame seeps into your dreams, whether it ever truly comes off. Sister Agnes once wore the dress herself, though she doesn't talk about it much. On rare evenings, when the work is done and the world is quiet, she'll sit by the fire and let the truth slip out in bits and pieces. I wore it a month, she confides one night, eyes fixed on the flames. My family sent me away after, said I was a stain. They couldn't wash out. She shrugs, as if it doesn't matter, but her fingers twist the fabric of her skirt, knuckles white. You try to imagine your own mother sending you away. The thought is like swallowing a stone. You promise yourself quietly that if you ever have a daughter, you'll fight the world before you let it mark her this way. There's a bitter humour in how seriously the villagers treat the dress. Some say it's cursed. If you touch it, bad luck will follow. Others whisper that only a tear shed in genuine remorse can wash it truly clean. The boys who jeer at the wearer today might fear her tomorrow. If a cow goes dry or a baby falls ill, in a strange way, the punishment dress gives its wearer a dark kind of power. She becomes the village's scapegoat, but also its warning, its superstition, its reminder that the law is always watching. On feast days, when the rest of the village gathers in colour and laughter, the girls in grey stand at the edge, invisible but unavoidable. You watch them, heartsick, as they serve food, scrub benches, collect scraps, always working, never celebrating. Sometimes a child will sneak a roll into a grey pocket, or an old woman will offer a blessing under her breath. These are the cracks in the wall, the places where kindness seeps in. Once you see a girl remove the dress at the river's edge, folding it carefully and letting it float downstream. She stands in her shift, goosebumps rising on her skin, and watches as the grey disappears around the bend. For a moment, she is free. You cheer silently from your hiding place, hoping she'll make it home before the dress is missed. The law says the dress must be returned at the end of penance, washed and ready for the next soul, but sometimes it vanishes. The magistrate fumes, the village gossips, but no one ever confesses. You like to think the river keeps a collection of grey dresses somewhere, a secret treasure of lost courage. As the season turns, you notice that fewer girls are seen in the square. Some have left, some have been forgiven, some have simply disappeared. The dress still hangs in the laundry courtyard, a silent sentinel. You wash it again, hands steady, heart heavy. Sister Agnes watches you, her face soft. You'll survive, she says, if you remember who you are beneath the grey. At night, as you lie awake, you imagine sewing bright flowers along the hem, turning the punishment into a banner of defiance. You dream of a day when the dress is nothing but a story told to frighten small children, a relic of a world that has finally learned mercy. Until then, you scrub, you wait, and you hope. You hear whispers of sanctuaries everywhere, places where fallen women might find refuge, houses run by kindly nuns or sympathetic widows who open their doors to girls who have lost everything but hope. The word refuge floats through the village like the promise of rain in a drought, tempting but too often broken. The reality you discover is as rough as unplaned wood and twice as splintered. Your first steps inside one of these sanctuaries are cautious, heart fluttering like a trapped bird. The house is tucked behind the church, its windows shuttered even at noon, a faded cross over the lintel. Inside, the air smells of lye and old soup. Nuns in drab habits move quickly from room to room, their faces scrawled into a kind of practiced sympathy. You wonder how many secrets these walls have swallowed, how many prayers they've heard go unanswered. Nuns in drab habits move quickly from room to room, their faces schooled into a kind of practiced sympathy. You wonder how many secrets these walls have swallowed, how many prayers they've heard go unanswered. A new girl arrives this morning, thin as a willow branch, clutching a ragged bundle. The abbess greets her at the door, offering a cup of water and a bowl of thin porridge. The rules are explained in a voice flat as rain. No talking without permission. No letters sent or received. No visitors. Prayers at dawn. Chores from sunrise to dusk. Your possessions are catalogued and stored. A ribbon, a broken locket, a letter never meant to be sent. Even your name is gently pried away. Here, the abbess intones, we are all sisters in Christ. The past is washed away. The lie stings, sharp as vinegar on an open cut. Days in the refuge slip past in a dull routine, floors scrubbed on raw knees, laundry beaten clean in cold water, stale bread and boiled turnip for supper. At night the girls huddle together in narrow beds, clutching rosaries, whispering old songs to chase away the dreams. You find comfort in small rebellions, a stolen apple, a carved heart on a windowsill, laughter muffled under a blanket. Each tiny act is a protest, a way to remind yourself that you are still alive beneath the weight of penance. There is a kind of safety here, if only because the world outside is worse. The villagers see the sanctuary as a place of penance, a necessary purgatory before a girl can be allowed back among the living, or cast out for good. Some girls never leave. Their families refuse to take them back. Their babies are sent to distant foundling homes, if they live at all. The lucky ones find work as servants, or marry men desperate enough to overlook the stain. You count yourself among the luckier ones, though the line between luck and fate feels as thin as a worn-out shift. You learn the hierarchy quickly. The nuns, stern and silent, hold all authority. Their lives are sacrifices carved from duty. Many were once in your place, cast out and taken in, turned into guardians of suffering for the next generation. There is Sister Judith, with her hawk's gaze and biting wit, who punishes girls caught whispering after lights out but slips extra bread to the ones who cry in their sleep. Sister Maria, gentle and soft-spoken, tends to the sick, her hands smelling always of thyme and honey. And then the abbess, whose presence turns every shadow colder. She prays the loudest, yet never seems to hear the girls at all. You befriend Clara, a girl with flame-red hair and a tongue sharper than a tailor's needle. She dreams aloud of escape, climbing the wall, hiding in a hay wagon, slipping away at midnight. Anywhere must be better than here, she says. And you nod, though both of you know the world's boundaries are written in iron and stone. Some girls attempt escape. The nuns discover their empty beds at dawn and search the fields, calling names that no longer belong to anyone. Sometimes the girls return, dirty and exhausted, driven back by hunger or fear. Sometimes they vanish altogether, and the sanctuary simply rearranges itself around their absence. The routine continues, unbroken. At meals, you listen to prayers for forgiveness, for strength, for God's mercy. The words are meant to soothe, but to you they feel like stones in your belly. You watch as Sister Judith traces the scars on her own wrist, then squeezes your hand under the table when the abbess isn't looking. "You're stronger than you think," she whispers, and for a moment you believe her. There are moments of humour, bright as candlelight. The youngest girls sneak sugar from the pantry, powdering their noses and pretending to be fine ladies. Once, Clara steals the abbess's keys and hides them in the stew pot, and the entire refuge erupts with laughter when the truth is discovered. For one glorious afternoon, the walls echo with something other than prayer. Still, darkness clings. You dream of your child, of the home you left behind, of the world that will never welcome you back. You wake to the sound of sobbing, sometimes your own, sometimes someone else's. In the sanctuary, grief is a river that never dries up, flowing from bed to bed. You find comfort in routine, in the small acts of care that bloom between the girls, a stolen daisy tucked behind an ear, a lullaby hummed in the dark, a blanket shared when the cold creeps in. These are the things that keep you alive, that remind you of a world beyond the walls. On Sundays, the village priest comes to lead Mass. He preaches about redemption and the prodigal daughter, his eyes sweeping over the girls with a mix of pity and judgment. God forgives all who truly repent, he declares. You wonder if he believes it. You wonder if anyone does. Sometimes you imagine a different kind of refuge, a place with open windows, laughter, forgiveness that doesn't come with a price. You picture yourself running through fields, your child beside you, free at last from shame and sorrow. It's a dream you tuck away to be savoured in the quietest hours of night. The world outside the sanctuary continues, indifferent and unchanging. News of war, famine, and pestilence drifts in through whispers and the rare letters smuggled past the nuns. You mark the seasons by the taste of bread and the thickness of the soup. Life narrows to the moment. A kind word, a gentle touch, a memory shared in secret. When girls leave the sanctuary, they slip away quietly, carrying their secrets like scars. You watch them go, torn between envy and relief. Sometimes they write, sending notes, hidden in loaves of bread, or inside the hems of donated dresses. The messages are always the same. I am alive. I survived. In the end you realize, survival is its own kind of rebellion. The sanctuary may not offer freedom, but it gives you time to heal, to grow, to imagine a future not shaped by shame. You sit at the window, watching the sky shift from grey to gold, and whisper a promise. You will leave this place one day, and when you do, you will not look back. For now, you wait, and you hope, and you hold tight to the laughter and kindness that stubbornly survive in even the hardest places. She's called the baby farmer, but nobody says it to her face. Her house stands at the edge of town, leaning toward the woods like it's already halfway to hiding. The fence is crooked, patched with whatever boards could be found, and the yard overflows with clucking hens, stray dogs, and on the best days, half a dozen noisy children, some toddling, some just old enough to fetch water from the well. You pass her gate often, curiosity burning beneath your ribs. Everyone knows her reputation. For a coin, she'll take a baby off your hands and ask no questions, not even the name. Some say she's a saint, a savior for girls with nowhere else to turn. Others mutter about missing infants, about strange shapes in the smokehouse, about children who vanish after dark. The truth, you suspect, is a shifting thing. Part mercy, part necessity, part shadow. Today you're sent with a basket of bread and eggs. The midwife asked you to deliver them, but you sense the real errand: to see, to witness, to remember. The baby farmer greets you at the door, hands dusted with flour, apron streaked with something that could be stew or mud. She has a voice like gravel and a gaze that sizes you up, measuring hunger, hope, and heartbreak all in one glance. "Come in, girl," she says, ushering you into a kitchen warm with the smell of soup and yeast. Children dart underfoot, quick as mice, eyes wide but wary. You set the basket on the table and look around. Cradles line the walls, each one home to a sleeping or fussing infant. The oldest, a girl of about 8, rocks the youngest, singing a lullaby in a language you don't know. There are no men here, never have been. According to rumor, only the baby farmer, her charges, and sometimes a girl in tears, gone before the next sunrise. She pours you a cup of broth, gesturing to a chair. "You're the midwife's girl?" she asks. You nod, and she grins. A flash of gold tooth, a hint of humor. "Don't worry, I won't bite. Not unless you forget the bread next time." You relax a little, drawn in by her sharp wit. It's a kindness, you realize, the sort that comes from surviving too many winters alone. She speaks freely, not hiding the truth. It's a hard world for bastards and their mothers. The priest can shout about sin all he wants, but a child needs food and arms, not prayers and shame. She gestures at the cradles. Some stay a day, some a year. Some are claimed by kin, others vanish when a merchant's wife decides she's due for a miracle. You catch the bitterness in her tone, sharp as vinegar. You wonder as you sip your soup how she manages it all. "Do you ever keep a record?" you ask, half afraid of the answer. She shakes her head, eyes darkening. "No records. Safer that way. For me, for them, for the girls who'd be hunted if the truth came out. If the magistrate ever knocks, I say nothing, and hope he doesn't look too hard." She shrugs, as if it's all she can do. Sometimes, a child leaves for the city in the back of a wagon. Sometimes, they don't. You sense she's lost children too, her own or others. The house is full of echoes, laughter and crying, and the hush of loss. At dusk, she stands in the doorway, watching the road. Sometimes a mother returns, older, braver, ready to claim her child. Sometimes the road stays empty. Villagers speculate about her profits, as if silver could ever weigh as much as sorrow. They whisper that she charges too much, or not enough. You see the truth in the worn shoes by the door, the patched quilts, the way she tucks an extra crust into every child's pocket. Money comes and goes, but hunger is always here. You help with the chores, carrying water, rocking a fretful baby while she kneads dough. Her strength is astonishing, lifting sacks, shooing chickens, calming 2 screaming children at once. She catches you staring and winks. "Don't look so shocked. Surviving takes muss." You smile, warmed by her rough kindness. After supper, she sits beside you, showing you how to braid a child's hair. "Every child needs a little gentleness," she murmurs. "They'll remember the hands that feed them, not the words said behind their backs." She glances at you, voice dropping, "And you don't let anyone tell you mercy is a sin. The world's got enough judges. What it needs is a few more rescuers." The humor in her stories comes out strong. She tells you about the boy who smeared jam on the mayor's boots, and the baby who refused to sleep unless sung to by a chicken. You laugh until you nearly drop your soup. Laughter is a rare gift in this house, and you treasure every moment. As night falls, you help settle the children into their beds. Some cling to you, fearful of the dark, others drift off, soothed by the lullaby of the baby farmer's rough voice. She walks you to the door, pressing a crust of bread into your hand. "Come back if you need a place," she says quietly. No questions, no judgment, not from me. You walk home beneath a sky thick with stars, the warmth of the house lingering in your bones. You think of the children you met, of the girls who found shelter here, of the secrets kept safe within those battered walls. You know the world will keep gossiping, but now you've seen the truth for yourself. Mercy is messy, but it's the only thing that lets any of you go on. In your dreams, you hear the baby farmer singing, her voice woven with laughter and sorrow. You dream of a world where no child is unwanted, no mother is cast out, no kindness is ever punished. It is a fragile hope, but tonight it is enough. If you listen at the market, you'll hear it. A tide of voices, hushed and sharp, rolling from the baker's stall to the steps of the parish church. Gossip is the village's most reliable crop, more plentiful than barley, hardier than turnips, and always in season. You've become an expert at reading the air. The tilt of a head, the curl of a lip, the quick glance traded between two women as they knead dough or rinse cabbage. This morning, as you cross the square, you're caught in the web of whispers that snare every unwed mother, tangle every hope, mocked by mothers, hated by wives. You feel the weight of the phrase in your bones. The women of the village, especially the church wives and elder matrons, have turned scorn into an art. They lead their daughters by the hand past the girl in grey, eyes fixed on some distant spot as though the very sight of sin could stain their own. You pass a group gathered by the well, voices low as they share news of a girl whose belly has started to swell. "She used to be such a good child," one sighs. "Her mother must be beside herself." Another clucks her tongue, already rehearsing the story she'll tell her husband over supper. You catch sight of the unwed mother, Elena, today lingering near the market stalls. She's looking for work, her face a map of shame and silent pleading. No one meets her gaze. The butcher's wife calls her a walking warning, and the apothecary's apprentice snickers as Elena passes. There's no cruelty quite so sharp as the kind disguised as concern. "Have you eaten, dear?" the midwife asks in a voice sweet as syrup, loud enough for the whole market to hear. You look piqued. "Rest, don't trouble yourself." You see Elena's hands ball into fists. She nods and walks away, dignity fraying like the hem of her only good dress. The mockery isn't limited to the women. The wives treat unwed mothers with tight-lipped disdain, guarding their households like fortresses, as if scandal were a plague carried on the wind. Wives mutter warnings to their husbands and sons, cautioning them to avoid those girls at all costs. You see it in the way a man steps aside at the well, as if shame might be catching. At home, your own mother's face tightens whenever the subject comes up. "Remember," she says, "one mistake and you'll pay for it the rest of your life." You find humour, dark and defiant, in the market's routines. The town's women have a game watching who lingers at which stall, who stands a moment too long with the wrong boy, who leaves the square with cheeks flushed and eyes shining. Bets are placed on who'll be next to fall from grace. It's the only sport in town that never pauses for weather. The jokes sting, but sometimes you laugh anyway. In a world that finds so many ways to punish, laughter is a small act of resistance. The unwed mothers band together, bound by shared scorn. You see them exchanging glances, sharing scraps of news, trading advice about work, housing, and how best to avoid the worst of the village's cruelty. You're drawn to their circle, finding strength in the way they look out for each other. Clara, still wild, despite her months in the sanctuary, cracks jokes about starting a club. Members only, entry fee, one ruined reputation. The girls laugh, some bitterly, some with real relief. Laughter here is a shield. Sometimes a mother racked with fear for her own daughter slips bread or coins to an unwed girl, eyes darting left and right to make sure no one sees. More often though, The women serve as the village's eyes and ears, eager to catch any slip, any sign of secret sin. The priest's wife sees everything. Clara whispers once, eyes wide, and she forgets nothing. It's said with mock horror, but you know it's true. The men, for their part, often seem relieved that the burden of punishment falls elsewhere. You overhear jokes, snide remarks, tales of wild girls and the foolishness of young men. Glad I'm not the one in skirts. A farmer chuckles, and his friends laugh too loud, as if to drown out any guilt. The hypocrisy is a bitter pill, but you learn to swallow it. As the weeks pass, you notice the toll on the unwed mother's shoulders hunched, eyes downcast, laughter quick to fade. They grow used to the stares, the muttered curses, the invitations to leave the market before the decent folk arrive. Some do leave, heading for the city or a distant town, hoping for a second chance. Most stay, clinging to what little life the village allows them. On Sundays, the scorn is at its sharpest. The church is full, families dressed in their best, the air thick with incense and judgment. The unwed mothers sit at the back if they come at all, heads bowed, hands twisted in their laps. The priest speaks of forgiveness, but his eyes linger on their faces, his voice tight with warning. The church wives nod, satisfied. You watch it all, a mixture of anger and sadness burning in your chest. There are moments of tenderness, too, fleeting and precious. Once you see an older woman gently touch Elena's arm, pressing a coin into her palm. You eat, child, she says, voice gruff but kind. Let the others talk. Elena's eyes fill with tears. Another time, a group of children gathers around an unwed mother, offering flowers and shy smiles. For a moment the world is softer. You cling to these glimpses of kindness, hoarding them like treasures. They remind you that cruelty is not the only inheritance of women here, that even in a world shaped by scorn and judgment, there is space for gentleness. But the world remains unforgiving. By late afternoon, the gossip has shifted to new scandals, new victims. The wives and mothers gather their baskets and daughters, herding them home with stern warnings. Remember, virtue is your only protection. The lesson is clear. Stray from the path, and you'll end up like Elena, mocked and alone. That night, as you lie in bed, you think of the girls who have left, the ones who stayed, the women who judge and the women who care. You wonder if there will ever be a time when laughter is just laughter, not armor. You whisper a wish into the darkness for mercy, for forgiveness, for a world where every woman can stand tall. For now, you hold close the warmth of the secret smiles, the hidden kindnesses, the laughter shared beneath the weight of the village's gaze. Tomorrow will bring more gossip, more judgment, but tonight you are not alone. The bell rings early, a harsh metallic clang that sets the village dogs howling and stirs the crows from their perches. You wake with a start, the sound still vibrating in your bones. Something is different today. The air is heavy with expectation, and as you peer out your window, you see people streaming toward the square, their faces grim and tight. Your mother enters, eyes red-rimmed. "Stay inside," she whispers, but you don't listen. You never do. You slip into the crowd, heart racing. The center of the square is a scene out of the worst of your nightmares. A girl, her name is Ruth. You realize with a jolt, a girl you once traded ribbons with at market stands between two guards, her hands bound in front of her. Her face is ashen, lips pressed together in silent defiance. She is barefoot, her feet caked with mud, the grey of the punishment dress stark against her pale skin. A hush falls as the magistrate reads out the sentence. The words sound the same as always, though today they seem to burn brighter, sharper, as if meant to carve themselves into your memory. For the sin of bearing a child out of wedlock, Ruth will be marked, branded by fire, branded by name. Let all who see remember her shame, and let none forget the lesson here. You feel sick, bile rising in your throat. The branding iron is brought forward, its tip glowing orange, the symbol of the village, the cross of St. Agnes, twisted now into a mark of disgrace. Ruth does not flinch as the iron is pressed to her forearm, though the hiss and acrid smoke tell you more than her silence ever could. The crowd shifts, uncomfortable. Some turn away, Others stare, hungry for a spectacle. As the magistrate pronounces the second half of the punishment, you want to scream. Henceforth Ruth shall bear the name Maleva, daughter of none, kin to shame. Her children, if any, will carry the same mark in our records. The blood of the whore, never to be forgotten. The cruelty is ancient, practiced, and precise. You know the stories of other girls, other times. Anne, forced to wear a bell around her neck for a year. Lisbeth, whose hair was shorn in front of the church. Mary, who bore a mark so deep it never faded, no matter how many times she scrubbed her arm raw. In some towns, girls are paraded through the streets, jeered at, spat upon. In others, they are simply erased, sent to the city, their names stricken from the rolls as if they never existed. The irony, you realize, is that men are never branded, their names are never changed, their lineage never questioned. Even the priest, who stands solemn at the edge of the crowd, never mentions the fathers. You feel the injustice burning brighter than the iron. The branding is not the only punishment. Ruth is marched through the village, forced to display her new mark, her new name. Children stare, wide-eyed, wives cross themselves and pull their daughters closer. Some men shout jeers, others just watch, silent and complicit. You watch Ruth's face. She holds her head high, refusing to weep, and in that stubborn pride you see something unbreakable, a glint of dignity that no iron can burn away. Back at home, your mother locks the door, wiping her eyes. She remembers, when another girl, her own cousin, was branded, decades ago. It never leaves you, she says, voice shaking. Even when the scar fades, people remember. They always remember. At supper, the family sits in silence. Your father stares into his bowl. Your siblings pick at bread. The mark, is not just on Ruth, it's on all of you. Tomorrow, people will whisper, wondering who will be next. Later, you steal out to find Ruth. She is by the river, washing the wound. Jaw set in stubborn silence. You sit beside her, offering a crust of bread, a strip of linen. They can't take your name from you. You say, "Not really," she shrugs, eyes distant, but you see gratitude flicker across her face. You sit in companionable silence, the world holding its breath around you. You remember the story of Agnes, the first branded girl in village legend. They called her Witch's Daughter, and for years she lived on the edge of town, growing herbs, healing the sick, and refusing to bow her head. People came to her in secret, seeking help, but in public they called her names, threw stones at her house. Sometimes your grandmother told you, survival is the only revenge you get. The next day, Ruth returns to the market. She wears her sleeve rolled up, the mark bright against her skin. The wives stare, whisper, cross themselves, but she keeps her chin high. A child points, curious, and Ruth offers a smile, gentle and sad. You see something shift, a crack in the crowd's certainty, a tiny fracture in the armor of judgment. There's a brittle humor among the girls, even here. Clara jokes, if they branded boys every time one fathered a child, there'd be more iron in the village than in the smithy. The girls laugh, a laugh edged with bitterness, but also strength. You share in it, the relief of knowing that even shame can't destroy your spirit. The days pass, Ruth's mark scabs, then heals. The village forgets, as it always does, but the record remains, the name in the parish ledger, the whispered warning to every daughter. Remember Ruth, mothers say. Remember what happens to girls who stray, but you remember more. You remember her courage, her defiance, her laughter in the face of cruelty. You remember the warmth of her hand as she squeezes yours, whispering, they can burn the skin, but not the soul. You know now, that shame is a tool, wielded to control and divide, but you have seen what happens when girls stand together, when kindness slips through the cracks, when laughter refuses to be silenced. The brand may scar the body, but not the memory, not the hope. As you drift to sleep that night, you imagine a world where no one is branded for love, where names cannot be stolen, where daughters and mothers walk free beneath the open sky. The dream is fragile, but it endures. burning, unbroken, beneath the mark. You wake in the chill, startled by shouts and the thunder of feet outside your window. Smoke, sharp and stinging, curls through the morning air. The village is gathered at the edge of the green, and your stomach sinks. You know this scene by heart now. Only today, there's something darker in the crowd, a restlessness that feels like storm clouds ready to burst. You wrap your cloak around your shoulders and slip into the street, curiosity warring with dread. Only today there's something darker in the crowd, a restlessness that feels like storm clouds ready to burst. You wrap your cloak around your shoulders and slip into the street, curiosity warring with dread. The talk started days ago, whispers growing into accusations, suspicion blooming in every alley and hearth. It always begins with small things. A chicken found dead, a cow failing to give milk, a rash of bad dreams among the children. Witchcraft, someone muttered, and the word stuck, like a burr. In a village eager to place blame, an unwed mother is the easiest target. You see her now, Magda, gaunt and exhausted, holding her baby close, eyes wild with terror. Her hair hangs loose, her dress torn. She is alone in a sea of angry faces. The magistrate stands at the centre, flanked by the priest and two burly men with cudgels. The priest's voice booms over the crowd, condemning the sin of lust and the devil's hand in Magda's fate. A child born of shame is the devil's seed, he proclaims, and the mother, unrepentant, opens the door to darkness. Magda shakes her head, pleading her innocence, but it doesn't matter. The villagers shout her down, spitting stories of old grievances and imagined curses. A woman pushes forward, clutching her son, claiming Magda's glance soured his milk. Another swears the stream ran red after Magda's baby was born. Even the midwife, usually the voice of reason, is silent, eyes downcast, lips pressed tight. Fear, you realize, is more contagious than any sickness. The trial is chaos. The magistrate reads from a book of old laws, his voice quivering with self-importance. A woman who bears a child outside of wedlock is an affront to God and to the order of this village. Should such a woman also traffic in herbs, dream strange dreams, or cause misfortune? He pauses, savouring the moment. Let her be tried for witchcraft, for she endangers all. Magda is forced to defend herself. She insists she only used herbs to soothe fevers and ease childbirth pains, the same as her mother and grandmother before her. Ask the midwife, she begs, but the crowd jeers. In the minds of your neighbours, the link is complete. Unwed, healer, unlucky, witch. The magistrate demands proof. Someone produces a broomstick, Magda's own, worn from years of use, and waves it in the air, as if this ordinary tool could sweep away doubt. A packet of dried sage is pulled from her cottage and paraded before the crowd. The priest's face darkens. See, she traffics in the devil's plants. You want to shout that every house in the village has a broom, that sage is used in the soup, but your voice dies in your throat. Even your mother's hand, usually so strong, trembles as she pulls you close. Don't draw attention, she warns, her voice barely a whisper. They force Magda to confess. When she refuses, they threaten her child. At that, she breaks sobbing, promising she meant no harm, that she only wanted to live. The magistrate nods, satisfied. Then we must purify her. The ritual is brutal. She is marched to the river, stripped of her shoes, and dunked in the icy water. The villagers shout and jeer, daring the devil to flee her soul. When Magda emerges, shivering and gasping, the priest marks her forehead with ash and declares her cleansed. If she never sins again, her baby is taken to the convent for its own good, to be raised without the stain of a mother's touch. It isn't enough for some. As dusk falls, a group of boys gather outside Magda's hut, hurling stones and curses. The villagers return home, uneasy, but convinced they've saved themselves from evil. You see Magda later, sitting alone by the cold ashes of her fire, her face blank. She is not burned at the stake, but something in her is scorched all the same. You walk home heavy with the knowledge of what you've witnessed. The pattern is clear. In times of fear, unwed mothers become scapegoats, accused of all the villagers' misfortunes. If a cow dies, if the rain doesn't fall, If a man strays from his wife, blame finds its way to the woman with no husband, the one who dares to survive. There's a sick humour to it all, the kind that tastes bitter. Clara jokes that if the village had to burn every woman who knew an herb from a weed, there'd be no one left to bake bread. You laugh, but it's the laughter of exhaustion, of anger barely held back. You imagine a world where suspicion burns itself out, leaving only warmth behind. In the days that follow, Magda disappears. Some say she left for the city, others whisper darker endings. The baby is never mentioned again. The priest preaches a sermon about the dangers of temptation, and the women in the congregation bow their heads, praying for safety, praying not to be noticed. You try to hold on to hope, to remember the kindnesses that slip through the cracks. A loaf of bread left at Magda's door, a blanket draped over her shoulders as she shivered by the river. These are the moments you treasure, reminders that compassion can survive even in the darkest places. But you also remember the faces in the crowd, your neighbours, your friends, your own family, driven by fear and desperate to preserve the illusion of order. You realise that as long as blame has a home, mercy will always be an outsider, knocking on the door. That night, as you lie in bed, you promise yourself, if ever the day comes when you are asked to judge, you will remember Magda. You will choose kindness, even if your voice shakes, even if you stand alone. The world may burn broomsticks and brand names, but it cannot burn away your memory, your hope, your stubborn refusal to forget. You stand alone at the edge of the old Magdalene laundry, the walls crumbling and overtaken by vines. The place looks almost peaceful now, draped in ivy, wildflowers poking through shattered windows, birds nesting where nuns once muttered prayers. But you know better. You feel the weight of history here, the sorrow soaked into stone, the lullabies swallowed by cold tile, the dreams washed out with every bar of soap. The wind hisses through the empty corridors. You pick your way through broken tiles and moss, each footstep echoing with ghosts of laughter, weeping, and half-whispered secrets. In the world beyond, the village has moved on. New shops built, new bells ringing, new children learning which stones to step on and which names to avoid. But the Magdalene laundry remains as a monument to the memories that refuse to stay buried. As a girl, you heard stories of this place. Mothers threatened daughters with tales of the laundry if they were caught sneaking off after sundown, or if their skirts were muddied after a secret meeting in the meadow. But you also heard the older women talk, voices roughened by work and memory. Some of us never left, they'd say, a joke curling the edge of the words. You didn't understand then, but now, walking these ruins, you feel the truth. The past is never gone. It only changes shape. The Magdalene laundry was meant as a sanctuary, or so the church said. Redemption through labour. The sign over the door once read, letters chipped, now and almost illegible. Here unwed mothers were sent to wash, to pray, to disappear from view. The laundry stands as a silent witness to 1,000 vanished stories. Girls scrubbing until their fingers bled, babies whisked away to foundling homes, names lost in the parish book, hope washed thin by the endless rhythm of soap and water. You sit for a moment on a sun-warmed stone, running your hands over the pitted surface. You can almost hear the lullabies sung after dark, the whispered comforts between beds, the small jokes traded while wringing out sheets. Even here, laughter once found its way in, as stubborn as the wild violets now bursting through the cracks. You remember the names and faces, Elena, Ruth, Clara, Magda, and so many more. Their stories linger in the corners, a forgotten rosary, a carved heart on a windowsill, a faded ribbon tangled in a bush. You close your eyes, let the sunlight settle on your skin, and breathe in the scent of wild thyme and dust. A gentle voice breaks your reverie. You look up and see an old woman, her hair silver, her face lined with the years. She sits beside you, setting down a basket of linens, humming an old lullaby. Do you hear them? She asks softly. The girls who sang to their babies, even as the world tried to hush them. You nod, throat tight. The woman tells you how, even in the harshest times, the girls found ways to endure, how kindness bloomed like wildflowers, a stolen apple, a warm blanket, a secret note tucked in a hem, how some escaped and others stayed, but all held on to hope in their own way. The world wants you to forget, she says, but you remember. That's how we survive. You leave the laundry as dusk falls, the village cloaked in golden shadow. You walk the old footpaths, passing houses where laughter drifts through open windows, where mothers tuck children into bed with gentle hands. The world outside is brighter, softer, but you carry the weight of memory, a stone in your pocket, a song in your heart. You pause by the graveyard's wild patch, placing a wildflower on the unmarked ground. You whisper names, not all of them yours, and promise not to let them fade. The bells ring out across the fields, calling the village to supper, to prayer, to forgetfulness. But you walk on, sure-footed, unashamed. Tonight, you will tell their story. Tonight, you will hold space for every girl lost to the world's judgment, for every mother who never got to sing a lullaby, for every hope that survived the wash and the fire. You will remember, and in remembering, you will reclaim what the world tried to erase. The world changes, you tell yourself. Sometimes slowly, sometimes not at all. But every memory kept, every kindness offered, is a crack in the stone, a seed of something gentler, braver, more beautiful. The past does not have to be a prison. It can be a promise, a lullaby, a story told until the world finally learns to listen. As the night deepens, the world outside quiets, and the village settles into its old familiar hush. You stretch out beneath your blanket, feeling the last warmth of the day slip away, your breath slowing to the rhythm of the crickets outside. The sorrow of the old Magdalene laundry, the echo of lost lullabies, lingers gently at the edge of your mind. Not as a weight, but as a whisper, a reminder that you are part of a long line of survivors. Let your thoughts soften, like the wild grass that grows over old stones. See in your mind's eye the faces of the girls who came before you, sometimes frightened, sometimes laughing, always enduring. Let their stories become a lullaby in your own chest, soothing and warm. Imagine the world growing kinder, one act of remembrance, one word of comfort at a time. Tonight, you don't have to carry the whole history alone. You can let go for a while and drift on the gentle tide of sleep. If any harsh memories come, picture them dissolving into a field of wildflowers, the breeze carrying away sorrow, leaving only calm. You are safe here. The past can rest, and tomorrow will come with new chances for gentleness, for courage, for love. Breathe in, slow and deep. Let the hush settle over you. Let the weight slip from your shoulders, and feel yourself carried, like a child, into dreams bright with hope. The world may judge, but you have chosen mercy. Sleep now, with all the old stories held close, and know you are never truly alone. Good night, 'tis sweet dreams.